Yinning at Life gang, it's Kimberley Roberts of the Soulful Yin brand. I'm here to dish out all things about traditional Chinese medicine, Yin Yoga, Reflexology, and of course, I'm here to disrupt your mind. So, thanks so much for pressing play on today's episode. Let's do this. So who wants to know how to stay grounded and centered in this cray-cray world that's going on right now? Hands up. Anybody? I'll tell you, I do. So in today's episode, I want to share with you some of the techniques and tools and tips that I used to stay grounded and centered when everything else in the world seems like it's just like going bonkers and bananas, right? And I mean, who doesn't want a tool to calm you down? Something that you can do at home on your own, doesn't even cost anything, just a little bit of your time, but yet empowers you in a way so that you feel like you're in control of your life instead of like life controlling you. Okay, so get ready, buckle up, maybe grab a notepad, some pen, maybe grab your favorite bevy, and let's talk about getting grounded and centered when things just feel like they're spinning out of control. Because I certainly know what that's like. And let me tell you, it sucks. So, all right. So tool number one that I use, first and foremost, before anything else, is my Yin Yoga practice. Even if it's like 5 minutes, one pose. I will tell you that so many years ago, must be going on I want to say 25 years ago, I created this crazy 20-day Yin Yoga challenge on YouTube. Back in the day when we didn't have really good equipment, there were no ring lights, nothing like that, right? I couldn't have made the worst videos ever in terms of the quality of the video, not the content. Content was certainly on point, but let's just say technology has evolved. And my YouTube videos are way better now. In fact, that 28-day challenge is no longer on my channel because I just couldn't handle it. I had to take it down. But the whole idea behind this challenge was it was one pose, up to 5 minutes, no fancy props, just taking the time to pause. Okay? And let me tell you, I had over 2,000 people who joined this challenge. It was incredible. It blew my freaking mind. There were days where I recorded in my pajamas and I was like, hey guys, we're going to do tadpole pose and we're just going to get really chill and centered. And I don't care if you're in your pajamas because I'm in my pajamas right now. It was one of those things. But my Yin practice has always been a go-to for me in terms of feeling grounded and centered. I mean, it doesn't get any more grounded than being on your yoga mat on the floor in a Yin pose, right? Where the majority of your body is actually on the floor, right? Not just you're not standing up in warrior two or anything like that on your feet. A lot of the times you're either fully on your back, on your stomach, on your side, sitting, but a lot of the times there's a good portion of you that is grounded to the mat, right? And the ability to be able to pause, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 2 fucking minutes, people, just the ability to pause and to be like, you know what? I'm stepping out of the world right now. I'm taking a little checkout and I'm tuning inward. Let me tell you, there is so much freaking power in that, so much power. So that's one tool. And I'll tell you that, it doesn't have to be a specific pose. It could be any pose. It could be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever floats your boat. But your intention, no matter what pose you do, your intention is to feel grounded and to feel centered and to feel calm. And how do you do that? As you're still in the pose, you're breathing deeply. You're focusing on your breath, okay? So whether it's like a 3 count breath in to a 5 count breath out, it doesn't matter what the ratio is. All that matters is that you're finding time to be still. Because I will tell you, and I say this all the time in my online classes that I teach on my app, is that you cannot change what you are not aware of. And when you are running around like a hamster on a wheel, there is no time for pausing, which means you're not grounded. You're just literally in survival mode, right? Just like going round and around and around, but there's no reflection. Reflection only happens when we pause. And I'll tell you that when you're grounded, things can look a lot clearer, right? Like maybe there's something that you're struggling with like a lot in your life, and your mind is rambling and making a whole lot more out of it than it really needs to be, because our mind is pretty good at doing that, right? Our mind is really good at making up stories of like, oh, it's really worse than it actually is. But I will tell you that I can't even count the number of times where I was freaking out about something and I got onto my yoga mat, I breathed, I lay in stillness, and I thought about what the concern was, what the issue was the thing I was freaking out about. And I realized, I don't really have any reason to freak out about this. It was just my mind making more out of it than it needed to be. Like seriously, it happens all the time with me. So don't underestimate the power of Yin Yoga. I don't care if you're not flexible, because it's not about that. You can prop your body up using all kinds of props you have at home, like blankets, bolsters, pillows, cushions. Doesn't have to be fancy blocks and straps and, bolsters. You can use what you have at home. And it doesn't matter what you look like in the pose either, because it's not about what you look like. It's about how you're feeling and how you're responding to what's happening in your life. Okay? And being able to have clarity, because when we can pause for a moment and look at something objectively, then you know what? It's kind of like the light bulb goes on over your head and it's like, okay, like maybe I was making a little too much out of this. But when you're scattered in your mind and you're running around trying to coordinate 50,000 things at the same time, you're not grounded and you're not thinking clearly. So that's my first one, okay? Yin Yoga. Secondly, straight up breath work. I will tell you, so many people underestimate the power of breath work. Like literally, like I have students on my app sometimes who will, do some of my breath work practices and they're like, oh my God, like I can't believe how much this helped me. I was just sitting there, or I was even just like laying down in my bed and I was doing the deliberate breathing practice that you were teaching us. And I couldn't believe just how grounded and calm and centered I got. Like from 5 minutes of just intentional breathing. Because here's what happens when you start to breathe deeply. Your nervous system starts to pick up the vibe, the energy, that the breath is slowing down, that the heart rate is slowing down. Okay? And when it starts to feel that, and then it feels that the body is starting to relax, okay? Muscles are relaxing, tissues are softening, okay? The mind is starting to get a little bit quieter. And then the nervous system is like, oh, there's some good stuff happening right here. This is really incredible. Okay, we're safe here. Let's start to shift out of this sympathetic state, that flight or fright, freeze, fawn state, right? The state that we're always in, let's just face it. And we start to shift into the parasympathetic, the good stuff, right? The rest and repair, the rest and digest state. This is where healing takes place. This is also where clarity can come in, right? And where we can be more objective. And so don't underestimate the power of just, you know what? Breathing in through the nose for 3, breathing out through the nose for 5. If that feels too intense, try going 2-to-4 ratio and kind of work your way up to it, okay? Especially if your lung capacity isn't really strong. But just try it. I'm telling you, it works. So that was number 2, breath work. Number 3, now we're getting a little bit funkier, okay? Maybe some of you are like, yeah, okay, I get the meditation, the breath work, kind of get the yin. Now we're going to talk about acupressure, okay? Now, if you're not familiar with acupressure, you might be familiar with acupuncture. So acupuncture is they take a needle, they stick it into an acupuncture point, or also known as a meridian point, somewhere along the body, and it helps to move energy, to improve circulation, to bring the body back into balance, okay? There's also some emotional stuff that comes up with acupuncture too. It can bring up emotions that are stored inside our organs and, like facilitate release of them. Now, acupressure works exactly the same, except that instead of the needle, it's pressure. It's applied pressure. So you're using your thumb, maybe your index finger, maybe a few fingers. But the idea is you're still pressing on an acupuncture point or a meridian point somewhere along the body, but you're doing it with your hands. Some of my students use like little dowels that have like a circular edge to them. You could even use the eraser tip of a pencil. That works too. Works actually really well. Just don't use that pointy part. And you apply the pressure and you hold for anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes, depending on the point. Now, if you do a long hold of just somewhere on the point, like say if I'm pressing here, Governor Fessel 24.5, this is a really calming point. If I just press in deeply and hold this for like 2 to 3 minutes, then it has a more calming effect because it's a long hold. Now, if I'm pressing on it and I'm kind of like tapping on it, right? Or I'm making like circular motions on it, then that can be a little bit more of an energizing effect. So it depends on what you're looking for. But regardless, you can tap on a point, you can make circles on a point, you can hold and press on a point. Like it all works beautifully. Okay? And it doesn't matter which point you're doing, there's always some component of grounding and centering because acupuncture and acupressure, it's all about balance. It's just all about bringing the body into balance. The body is in balance. It's grounded, right? Like when we're grounded and we're centered and we're calm, we can shift into balance. So give acupressure a try. You can always find some acupressure techniques and practices on my app. I will link that down in the show notes. You can also find tons of breath work and tons of meditation practices and of course Yin Yoga practices too on my app. And you can try those. So those are kind of like some of the other ways. Now I want to talk about reflexology. Now, if you're not familiar with foot reflexology, basically, we have over 72,000 nerve endings in our feet, and they link up to everything in our body. So everything has a point. Your heart, your head, your eyes, your ears, your fingers, your elbows, like all your digestive organs, like all the organs, everything has a point on the foot. And so similar to acupressure, you're applying pressure onto a point. Sometimes you're making circles. Sometimes it's kind of like little X's. Sometimes you're just pressing and holding. To be honest with you, what I tell my patients so that it doesn't overwhelm them is massage the soles of your feet for 5 minutes. I will tell you, it is so grounding. When you massage your own feet or get partner or your kids, like do this with your kids. It is so cool to do this with your kids. Like make it kind of like a little game, right? Or even like date night with your partner, right? Like let's play with each other's feet and let's see what else happens after that, right? I'm sure you can use your imagination. So when you massage your feet, you are stimulating all 72,000 nerve endings. Even if you don't even know where the nerve endings are and what they relate to, it doesn't matter. Just massage your feet. Get out some carrier oil like a jojoba or like even an olive oil or grapeseed. And, if you want to use essential oils, I'm a huge proponent of using doTERRA essential oils. So you can, use oils there. I can link you up in my show notes with some information on that. And just start to massage them. It's not rocket science, okay? Get out of your head about it and get into your feet and just start to massage. If you can't do both feet at the same time because it's just difficult to access, do one foot at a time. Doesn't matter. Just get in there and start massaging and playing with your feet, especially before you go to bed, because there is nothing more powerful than going to bed after playing with your feet, and then you are already set up in an energy where you're grounded and centered. And that means, guess what? You're going to sleep a whole lot better by doing so, because it's going to calm your mind. It's going to allow you to just decompress from your day and shift out of that state of doing into that state of being. Okay? So that is another way, reflexology. Now, one other one that I want to talk about with the acupressure that I didn't mention before is there is a really powerful acupressure point on the soles of your feet. It's called the kidney 1 point. It's called bubbling springs. If you stand up and start stomping your feet up and down, like almost like you're marching, right? You are going to stimulate that point. Do that for 5 minutes. It is so grounding. It is powerful. It is potent. I know you're probably sitting here thinking this chick is crazy for like giving me this idea of like marching my feet. But I'll tell you, when I said earlier that by tapping on a point, you stimulate it, what do you think you're doing when you're marching up and down? You're stimulating the point. So do it. Plus, the other thing too is that you are also stimulating 72,000 nerve endings in your feet when you just stamp and march. So just stand in place and march. 5 minutes. Put a timer on your phone, maybe put some funky tunes on and just go for it. Get out of your head about it, because as soon as you're in your head, then you're like, this is ridiculous. This isn't going to work. But I'm telling you, it does. And what is the end goal here? We want to feel grounded, centered, calm, in control. Do we care how we get there? No. All we care about is that we get there, right? So let's do that. Now, the last one I want to talk about, now some of you might know about this technique and some of you might not. Grounding mat. Who here has a grounding mat? Put up your hand if you have a grounding mat or if you have grounding bed sheets. Who has heard about this? This is life transformative. I'm going to tell you a little story about why I got this in the first place. So I'm a reflexology therapist. I work with my hands all day long. I'm playing with feet. By the end of the day, my hands are sore. Okay. I've been doing this 15 years now. So my hands get sore, they get inflamed, and I don't really want to end up with really arthritic hands where I can't even open up anything. So I got a grounding mat, because the understanding with grounding mats is that they are really good for releasing pain and inflammation. Okay. So what I'll literally do is I will put my hands on the mat and I'll just like sit there. Like right now, I've got this mat. It's on my lap and I've just got my hands on it. The palms of my hands are resting on this mat. And I'll sit there for like 15 minutes. And I'll tell you, like, there's these little electrons, just like what's in the ground, right? If you go outside, like a lot of you have known about earthing, right? Grounding outside, stepping into the earth barefoot. Well, this is exactly the same thing, except you don't have to go outside, especially when it's wintertime, and stand out there in the freezing cold in your bare feet. So I use it for my hands, but when I first got it, I mean, I knew about the pain and the inflammation part, right? And I knew to a certain extent it was like really good for calming. But I started using it in my meditation practice, in my breath work, and in my Yin Yoga practice. I started using it in Yin poses, whether it was like maybe an area of my stomach was lying on it, maybe it was my feet flat on it, maybe it was my hands or my arms, whatever. But I started using it and I started to notice how calm and centered and grounded I was feeling. Like so much more than just with the practice alone. I was like, holy crap. I'm like, this really works. And I would just feel like almost like so blissed out. Like it was, I don't know, it was kind of hard to describe, but I was just like almost pulled into another dimension. I was just like really at ease. It was almost like, yeah, I don't give an AF about anything right now. I'm just so calm. And the more that I use the grounding mat, a lot of the times what I would do is for meditation, I would put the grounding mat on my yoga mat. Then I would put my feet, so bare feet, right? Because you need skin contact with the mat, not clothing. And I would put my feet on it, and then I would sit on my meditation cushion just slightly behind it. So I knew that my feet were on the grounding mat, okay? And I would just sit there and meditate. And I could feel the vibration, the pulsing sensation coming through my feet into my body. Same thing when I put my hands on it. I can start to feel like a pulse. It's like really, really cool. Now, my grounding mat is from a company called Grounding Well. I'm going to link it up for you guys in the show notes with a really nice discount code if you're interested in getting one. They ship really fast. And I will tell you that like I use the grounding mat every single day. Like within a few minutes, it takes all the inflammation out of my hands. It takes the kind of stiffy joint feeling out of my hands after I've been, doing a lot of reflexology treatments. I will often lay on my back and put it underneath on my back. So I'll put like bare skin against it. And then I have a grounding bed sheet as well that I use. So when I'm sleeping all night long, guess what's happening? I'm getting grounded, like literally, like 8, 9, 10 hours. And I'll tell you the higher and better and deeper quality of sleep that I'm also experiencing from using this. And I'm waking up feeling more refreshed, but also more grounded. Like I just feel like, okay, I've got this today. I have got life. Like life might life me today, but I've got it. And it's incredible. So don't dismay the possibility of using a grounding mat. If you just research it, just go into Google and type in benefits of grounding mat, like you'll see. And I'll tell you, like from uh like physical perspective, I mean it's don't get me wrong, I love to walk in the grass barefoot, but it can create problems, right? Like you can get foot infections if you step on something and you cut your foot, like you could end up with an infection. So, and when it's in the middle of the winter, you don't want to be standing outside there in the freezing cold with your feet in the snow, right? Trying to get down to the earth. Like, and if you live in a condo building, so this is another thing. I live in a condo building, a pretty high rise, and there's also lots of other buildings around me. So there's a lot of like technology, right? A lot of frequency, a lot of EMF out there, right? Just in my apartment alone with my computer, my my Wi-Fi box, my Apple TV, my phone, my tablet, like, the microwave, like you name it. Like there's so much. And I noticed when I first moved here, it took me a little bit of time to figure it out, but I would get flighty, like feel like spazzed out, like pretty quick. And it took me a while to figure out that all the EMF around me was actually like affecting me, like mentally, physically, emotionally, but I'm sure energetically as well. And so when you're in a house, like there's not, you might have other houses around you, but it's not quite the same as when you're in a building. And the other thing with a building is that, like, I'm up on the fourth floor. I'm nowhere near the ground floor, right? So in your house, like, you're a lot closer to the earth than you are in a building. So if anything, if you're looking to get grounded simply, if you're in a lot of pain, if you have a lot of joint inflammation, definitely invest in a grounding mat. Like, it is seriously, like, all these ways that I have taught you today for grounding are all incredible. Don't get me wrong. They're all incredible on their own way. But what if you could start to combine them together? Use the grounding mat in your breath work. Just have your hands on the mat while you're sitting there. Use it in your meditation. Use it in your yin practice. Like, it's incredible. So these are really all simple ways and that don't take a lot of time and that can help you feel grounded. And can we not just acknowledge the fact that this world right now is a little on the cray side? Okay. So I'm recording this podcast episode. I live in Canada. Our PM is like resigned. And then I look at the United States and who have we gotten there? Trump again. And this is not going to be a rant on politics or anything like that. But, we're in a post-pandemic world. Like there's been a lot of stuff that's happened in this world in a really short period of time. Okay. And life has thrown us a lot of challenges, especially in the last 5 years. Take the time to ground yourself every single day because life is going to life you. And I want you to have tools to be able to handle when that happens. So I'll link everything in the show notes for you. You can go and take a look. Let me know. Leave a comment, leave a review, share this episode with somebody else that you know could use some grounding techniques. And thank you so much for pressing play on today's episode. Namaste.